Hi, and welcome to today's episode of pianoTV. I'm Allysia, your host, and today we are going to talk about the Trinity College of London, TCL, which is one of the major music schools from around the world where you can take examinations. The other two being the Royal Conservatory, RCM, and the ABRSM. What we're going to do in today's video is talk about how TCL works, do a little bit of an overview of this musical school, and compare and contrast it with the Royal Conservatory and the ABRSM, and there's pros and cons to all of them, so we're going to discuss that. Let's get started. First of all, let's talk about a little bit of basics and backstory. The Trinity College of London is based in London, UK, but it has examination centers in over 100 countries around the world. They offer diplomas up to a postgraduate level in a variety of different disciplines. So it's not just for music. You can also take TCL exams in, say, drama or English as a second language. This school has been around since 1877, and along with the other schools, ABRSM and RCM, is probably one of the top three, at the very least top five, music schools from around the world where you can take exams, get grades, etc. One thing that I really think is cool about TCL right out of the gates is, unlike RCM and ABRSM, they offer exams in pop and rock disciplines. So if you're a guitar player, you don't have to do classical guitar exams, you could do contemporary guitar exams. So here's how the grading system works with TCL. Like the RCM, they have a preparatory level, which I affectionately refer to as musical kindergarten. So they don't call it preparatory, they call it the initial level. After the initial level, you have grades 1 through 8, similar to the other systems. And if you want to keep going past grade 8, there are diploma levels. The first one is the associate, ATCL level, and then you have the licentiate, and then that's basically equivalent to a bachelor's degree. And then you have the fellowship, which is equivalent to a master's degree. One cool thing about TCL is they give you an idea of how many learning hours and teaching hours are suggested for each level. For example, a grade 5 student might want to take 24 teaching hours worth of lessons and practice at home for 156 hours. Of course, this is purely suggestive. It's not like a mandatory requirement. But I still think it's cool, and it gives potential students a ballpark figure of how much practice that's required for the average person. That means that the total amount of hours they suggest to go up to a grade 8 level is 1,450 hours. And just for a fun perspective, Malcolm Gladwell of The Outliers talks about how it takes approximately 10,000 hours to require true and deep mastery of something. So 1,450 hours, that's like, I don't know, 1/9 of that. But it's still a lot. It's still equivalent to about 4 years of 1 hour every single day, or, 8 years of about 30 minutes every single day. Anyway, and like the ARCT, achieving your grades 6 through 8 through TCL can earn you UCAS points. Is that how you guys say it in Britain, UCAS, or do you say UCAS? So why even bother going through the TCL to get your grades? Well, they provide a few suggestions to answer that question. First and foremost, just for personal reasons, for fun. A lot of people like having the challenge of doing exams to push themselves along their music learning journey. Another reason you might do it is if you're trying to get into a conservatory, in which case most music conservatories require that you're at a grade 8 level as a minimum to do an audition to get in. And then a third reason would be to have some type of musical job or career. Like if you want to be an accompanist or a session musician or a teacher, this might be the kind of credentials that you'd like. One thing that I like about TCL is you don't have to do every single grade either. If you want to just jump in and do your grade 8, you're more than welcome to. Whereas the RCM, it's a little bit more confusing with the RCM, because after grade 8, you have to do every single grade, and there are prerequisite theory exams, but there's no prerequisite theory exams for TCL. So it's a little bit easier to jump into, and it's a little bit more flexible. Many countries, over 100 actually, offer classical piano examinations, including Canada, where I'm from, which I actually didn't know until I started researching Trinity in a little more depth. In fact, it looks like I could even do exams in my own province, so there looks like there's lots of opportunities for exams here. For the rock and pop programs, there's a more limited palette of places that offer them, so Canada doesn't offer them, but a whole bunch of other places do. And I really think if your country offers them, you should definitely check them out, because I think it's a really cool program. Now, if you want to learn theory alongside piano, you can take optional theory exams, and there's a grade of theory that corresponds with each grade of music. Again, these are totally optional though. You don't need to do theory exams, but it is a good adjunct to learning the piano. I always recommend theory. Like other music schools, such as the RCM, you can also go through a teacher training program, which is what I've partially completed anyway with the RCM. They offer a level 4 certificate for music educators, which they call the Trinity CME. In addition to doing exams for classical piano, for pop and rock piano, for theory, and for being a music educator, you can also do an exam to be a piano accompanist. Now, this is something that you would, if you wanted to be an accompanist, it's only available between grades 5 through 8, which makes sense because if you're a beginner at piano, you're not going to be able to do any accompanying because the music's going to be too simple. But I think it's really cool because the other music schools don't offer that at all as an option. But that's a path that a lot of people choose to go down who are piano players, and there is a demand for that. So it's cool that they offer training in that arena. For a TCL piano exam, you choose 3 pieces to play. These pieces are chosen from the relatively narrow list of pieces that they offer, but you are allowed to play as one of these pieces your own composition, as long as it's comparable in difficulty. When you get to the higher grades 6 through 8, the list of pieces are further divided into Group A and Group B pieces. And this is just by era. Group A is going to be the older music, like from the Renaissance, Baroque, etc. And you choose one from each group. I really like the unique option to play your own composition. That's not something you come across with the RCM or ABRSM. It really gives you a sense of the emphasis that TCL places on creativity. If you were doing a rock and pop keyboard exam, your options are even more flexible. You choose a song from the lists, and then your second piece could either be a composition or your own choice. So basically anything you want it to be, again, as long as it's comparable in difficulty. You also have to play some of these to a backing track, which is another interesting aspect that you don't have with RCM or ABRSM. In the rock and pop exams, you also have to do a part of the exam called session skills, which is either a short improvisation or some other ear test. Again, this is different from the RCM and ABRSM in a big way. There's no improv at all in those exams, as it has a more classical by the book flavor as opposed to Trinity's more creative one. You also have to do these tests when you're taking a classical piano exam, but you do have the option to do other things like sight reading. And of course, there are technical requirements as well, like scales. For example, if you were doing your grade 2 rock and pop keyboard exam, you would have the selection of songs such as Born to be Wild by Steppenwolf, Chandelier by Sia, you have Rolling Stones, Lana Del Rey. There's a good blend of really modern and relevant selections as well as older classics to appeal to everyone. An example of music you'd be able to select at a higher level for classical piano in categories A and B are what you can see on the screen. So we have some Bach, some Bird, some Schmitz, etc. I like that they span beyond the standard Baroque to early 20th century categories to include the very modern, like In Dreams from Lord of the Rings, and the very old Renaissance music, like Coranto by Bird. And if that isn't enough of a selection for you, they also offer alternate repertoire selections, so just a few extra choices to take a look at. Just like with the RCM and ABRSM, a pass is well above 50%. With TCL, it's 60%. There are different tiers of passing. So, for example, the highest marks from 87 to 100% would earn you distinction, while if you got a mark of, say, 65%, you would simply just get a pass. Another neat feature about these exams is that up until a grade 5 level, a part of the exam is the examiner asking the student questions about the music they're playing. And this is a way to slide a little music theory into an exam, which I think is important. You not only want to be able to play your music, but you should also be able to understand it enough to explain certain elements of it. TCL takes their technical exercises seriously. In addition to playing the 3 pieces, you also have to play 3 different etudes at a higher level. What I like is that they give you specific targets, as in you must, say, choose an etude that develops coordination or finger and wrist strength and flexibility, and they give you a couple choices for that. As I mentioned earlier, if you get your grade 8 in classical piano through the TCL, you have the option of going further to various diploma levels. And again, there's no prerequisites required. You could jump right into the licentiate level if you wanted to. Now there's 3 diploma levels. You can jump into the first 2, but if you want to do the final one, the FTCL, you have to at least have done the licentiate level. So basically, if you want to do the very, very top tier, you have to do the second highest tier, which is fair. Now, one thing I really love about the RCM that I think has an advantage over the other 2 music schools, including TCL, is they have a huge repertoire list, literally over 100 selections per grade. And this gives the performer a huge range of freedom when they're choosing music for their exams. Instead of selecting from, say, like a dozen-ish pieces, they get to select from over 100, which increases the likelihood of the student being able to pick a piece they really, really love and then having a repertoire list of music they absolutely love instead of picking from pieces they might just be lukewarm about. Now, the one thing that TCL has a limited repertoire list per grade, but what they make up for it with is in allowing students to bring in their own compositions, which I think is just a really, really cool and creative feature. I've talked about it a lot already, but I think that is one of the most exciting parts about TCL, is that it does emphasize creativity. I also like that TCL is the only major music school, as far as I know, that offers programs in rock and pop styles. With the RCM and ABRSM, they do have modern pieces that you can play. It's not like you only have to do classical, but the pieces are a little bit more limited. Like there's more, you have to do Bach with your Allysia keys. You can't just do one or the other. Whereas with the rock and pop track through the TCL, you can just do the contemporary music if you have absolutely no interest in the classical stuff. We already talked about this too, but I do like the lack of prerequisites with Trinity. You don't have to do prior grades to do other grades. Like you don't have to do your grade 5 to do your grade 6, which is similar to the RCM as well and the ABRSM up until a point. I just find it slightly less complicated with TCL, as we already talked about. Overall, there are pros and cons to every music school, and every music school is going to have something different to offer, but I think Trinity College of London is a really, really exciting option that I just haven't, it's not really a thing where I grew up. I've never heard of it until like the last few years, but researching it, I actually find it really exciting, and I think it's cool that you can do exams locally. So it's something that I'm going to strongly consider for myself and for my students in the future, just because it feels like such a refreshing and modern and innovative program, definitely worth checking out. And that is all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to check out the similar videos I've done with the RCM and ABRSM, I'll have those linked in the blog post. As well, you can hop on over to my vlog channel. My husband and I recently did our top 10 favorite music albums. If you want to, hear some of our opinions on more contemporary music instead of all the classical stuff we usually do on this channel. It's a lot of fun, so hop on over to the vlog for that. Thank you so much for watching. Give this a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. This was a really awkward thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye, guys. One thing that I really think is cool right off the gate,